Good morning. A little slow start, huh? Um, like Loretta said, great weekend. Powerful, powerful stuff. You know that God is interested in your family? God is deeply invested in how your family goes. And the reason that that is so important is because what God realizes that maybe that we don't is that your future rests in how your family goes today. It's the law of reaping and sowing. So, and I think for us, in the series of More Together, is God does so much more when we come together than he can ever do when we're just by ourselves. And I know the Lord has made some announcements, and guys, I want to super encourage you to participate in Man Alive. They're serving breakfast. Yeah. Bacon. Bacon. Everybody say bacon. That's a great thing about being a follower of Jesus instead of some of the others. We can eat bacon. But anyway, just think about that. And then save this date, June 3rd through the 5th. June 3rd through the 5th. That's our men's conference. And it's going to be at Camp Methuselah. It's a rough camp out, great time. So plan on that. And it's really reasonable. It's a really good deal. So, but plan on taking that time, June 3rd through 5th. And some of the guys, they say, well, I'm not really much into the camping. Okay, whatever. But the deal is a lot of guys, they just come up for the Saturday, hang out with us, eat good food, and have a good time, right? So that's in the first weekend in June, all right? Now, when we're thinking about this, coming closer together, everybody likes different stuff. I got some jerseys, same guy, different teams. It's weird. There's the Vikings, the Jets, the Packers. And I know that there's Niner fans, there's Raider fans, there's Cowboy fans, there's a lot of this kind of stuff. So we're very diverse, and so when we think about this, now this is a good time of year for sports fans. Baseball's in full swing, and so we got the Giants fans that are talking all kinds of smack. We got the Dodger fans that are saying this is our year, which they say every year. We've got basketball is in the playoffs, and Steph Curry is he's electric and doing great stuff. Some teams are hot, and some teams just not so much. Now, here's the deal: don't we just love talking smack to each other about our teams? Don't we just love that? I mean, even me just mentioning that kind of stuff, and I even noticed that Rudy, he kind of gets involved when I talk about Raiders just a little bit, and so what it is when we talk about this stuff, we know how to celebrate our diversity. We know how to do it when it comes to certain things. Now, and so our differences should not be what separate us, or our differences shouldn't be the issues that define us. Because we're going to be different. Now those friendly differences are actually can become common ground if we do it the right way. So even in our families, not everybody in your family is the same. Like some of you have children, they'll eat anything, right? It don't matter what you put it out there, they just suck up the groceries, it doesn't care. And then some of us how many of you guys have really picky eaters in your home? We used to call that the skinny kid. Because the rest of us, we'd eat it all, we didn't care. But but see, diversity is part of the world that we live in, right? And so now all of that stuff that makes us different, the world says that puts us at odds with each other. God says that's what makes the world work the way that it's supposed to. Because we do more together. Okay, now, so for instance, okay, think about this. So what if everyone was a Giants fan? Yeah, exactly. Okay, so what if everyone was a Raiders fan? Oh, wait, sorry, I forgot. Prison overcrowding. But what if everybody was a Niners fan, right? So now, what if the only sport was baseball? What if every kid grew up to be an electrician? What if every man was the same size? What if everyone was the same outfit? Good save? Okay, see, we're not supposed to be the same. We're supposed to be different. See, so what if everybody was like you, thought like you, liked what you like and didn't like what you like? What if everyone was like that? See, the world wouldn't not be the great place that it is. Okay? And so check this out. In the book of James chapter 4, This is in the Message Bible. Here's what James said. He said, where do you think these appalling wars and quarrels come from? Do you think they just happen? Think again. They come about because you want your own way. Now, this is what's super important today. God intentionally created us different. Intentionally. Because everybody brings something else to the table. Even in your home. Men and women are created differently. Right? And I know, there's stuff going on in the house like, equality. Well, equality is great, but sameness is not. And so we're just different. So now here's what makes this important for us today. Even though we know everybody's different, most of the problems that we have and the quarrels we have and the conflict comes from us trying to convince somebody to think like us, like what we like, don't like what we don't like, and be what we think is the right thing to be. Isn't that where the quarrels come from? And so understand that diversity is something that God put there on purpose. So our diversity is what should bring us together and not tear us apart. Now, there's 30 Major League Baseball teams. There's 30 NBA teams. There's 32 NFL teams. There's 318 million people in the United States. There are 198 different nationalities that are represented in our country. We are way, way, way different, and God's plan is that it's supposed to work together. Now, in this diverse culture that we live in, the conflict gets ratcheted up by people trying to divide us. Now, let me just say this. Some of the stuff that I'm going to say today, you might think it's political. You're right. Some of the stuff I'm going to say today, you might think that it's based on somebody's sexual preference or something. You're right. Some of the stuff you might think is age specific and that kind of stuff. You're right. Because we're all different. And I think the problem is we're living in a culture now that's using our diversity against us. Now think about this. In your home, in your family, in your workplace, and the friends and the stuff in your life, the enemy of your soul uses that diversity to tell you that they're not like you and they got to be like you. And it uses all of this speech and these words and this name calling to try to turn us against each other. Isn't that the power of the enemy working in your life? Do you guys get that? And so here's the deal. God wants diversity to complete us, not compete us. Does that make sense? And so let's look at things just a little bit different, okay? So now from the very beginning, God created Adam in this perfect world, and here's what he said. It's not good for you to be alone. Now that's used oftentimes in wedding stuff and that kind of stuff, but the deal is none of us were made to live this life out on our own. Here's God's perfect plan. He gives you gifts and abilities and talents and experiences. And it puts people standing next to you with different gifts and different talent and different abilities and different experiences. And together, we're able to do some phenomenal things. Can I share this with you just as a follower of Christ? In your life, when you really get a handle on this, God doesn't waste any experience. None. Whatever you've been through, God doesn't waste it. And one of the most difficult seasons of my life, when I was just a young boy, my parents would not getting along, that would be an understatement. I mean, when I was young, I thought bedtime on Friday night meant that the cops were here. It's just crazy house. And so all of those experiences, I thought, when I became an adult, I thought, man, what a wasted portion of my life. What a crummy childhood. I thought, and here's what I thought. How could God bring anything good out of that horrible season? Until years ago, a young boy came to me and he told me his story, which was exactly like my story. And here's what he said. He said, how can God do anything good with me because I'm so messed up? And I said, let me tell you a story. See what I'm saying is that diversity, when our stories intertwine, God does incredible things with us. So now, in our broken world, they will tell you that our differences are what makes this world broken. They will call out things, they'll call it bigotry, and they'll call it hate speech and all this kind of stuff. And that is so wrong. Just because we don't agree doesn't mean I hate you. Right? You guys with me? Okay? So don't buy into that. Don't buy into this kind of stuff. And see, I could say things about certain individuals and people are like, oh, they say, don't buy into that stuff. Don't become so intolerant of the world around you that you become so isolated that you become a jerk in the name of Jesus. But you see what I'm saying? Don't let the enemy divide you from the world that you're supposed to be a part of. Now, so we are New Life, and you know what, guys? We are very different. Just look around the room. Have you ever seen such a group of weird people in your life? Different backgrounds, different socio-economical stuff going on, and different jobs and different family models, all this kind of stuff. We're New Life, and so we're very different, but we are one because we're New Life. So now, in our dysfunctional world, what happens is those shattered differences, oftentimes what people do is we will use those opportunities when someone, it feels like they're against us or they don't agree with us. We take a defensive posture. Anybody ever get defensive? Okay? You feel like somebody says something that was a little sharp, it's like, okay, it's on, right? Anybody ever shoot back at somebody? Come on, help me out. Yeah. What do you mean by that? You know? And so it gets us all fired up. So what happens is when those differences are pointed out, we gather the stones together. We start tossing rocks at one another. Right? Okay? And see, what happens with us is we decide that your sin's worse than my sin. I mean, mine's understandable because of what I've been through, right? We decide, okay, so my hurt is more justified than your hurt. It's like, oh, come on, that's not bad. You got to be hurt like me. Mine's way worse. Or we say, my right makes your right wrong. Or my spot's better than your spot. Or your dysfunction is hopeless, but mine is understandable. See, we kind of convince ourselves, and that's where the stones come out. We gather all these stones together, and see, that's the life that we bring to Jesus. Now watch this, and here's where I want to go with this whole thing. In John chapter 8, this group of religious people brought this woman to Jesus, and they put her in front of Jesus, and they said, hey, Jesus, there's this woman. She was caught in the act of adultery. Could you imagine the shame? She was caught in the act of adultery and dragged out. Wow. That's pretty rough, don't you think? So they got this woman in the middle of them. So they brought her to Jesus and they said, hey, and this is what they said. They said, Moses commanded in the law we should stone her. Right? Now here's the deal. I want you to get this. Moses didn't command in the law. Moses said, okay, if you want to punish people for the wrong that they've done you, if you want to, you can stone them. Now I'm not belittling anything. If you have been the victim of adultery, it's the most heart-wrenching experience in the world. But here's the thing, is that wasn't their place. Now I think what happens to us is we have these things go on, and we bring them to Jesus. And one of the interesting things in this, look at this, and here's verse 5 of John chapter 8. It says that in the law Moses commanded to us that such a woman should be stoned. And then they said, now what do you say? So here's the deal. Here's what we do. Is we bring these problems and these offenses and these differences and the stuff that we don't agree on. And I mean, isn't it frustrating when people don't agree with you and you know you're right? Come on, help me out. Yeah, you know. It's like, come on, you know. How many times? You know, so we try to bring this. And so what we do is we have this frustration. We have these offenses and bring them to Jesus. And we say, Jesus, what do you have to say about this? And what is interesting is Jesus doesn't say anything. You ever wonder why Jesus doesn't say anything? Now, the way that the story goes, they said, so what do you say? So it says, all it says about this is Jesus knelt down, and with his finger, he began to write in the dirt. That's all he did. He didn't answer. Now, here's the deal. Now, see, we say, well, they didn't really want to know what Jesus thought because they already passed sentence. Moses commanded. I don't really want to do this. Anybody ever get a whooping when you're growing up? Anybody? Come on. Now, there was a spanking, there's a whooping, right? Spanking is what you got at school. You got a whooping at home, right? Anybody get a whooping? Anybody think other kids need a whooping? Just think, okay. But anyway, I remember my mom would say, "You're making me do this. I don't really want to do this, but I have to." And I'm 8 thinking, actually, I would be fine if you didn't. Right? Isn't that true? How many parents have ever used that, This hurts me more than it does you. Then how come I'm the one crying, See, here's the deal. So they had already decided we have to do this. And Moses commanded that this woman should be stoned. So they didn't come and ask Jesus what he was thinking. They wanted Jesus to agree with what they were thinking. See, sometimes, and this is where I'm going to get to with this, sometimes we bring our offenses and our hurt and our problems to Jesus, and all we're wanting him to do is approve of the decision that we've already made. We just want permission. And that's why Jesus doesn't say anything. Because Jesus doesn't want to confirm or deny your conclusions, but what Jesus wants to do is like, okay, what about you? Okay? So have you ever brought a grudge or something to Jesus and asked him to kind of respond? So what does Jesus say? He says nothing. Now, we say he did this or they did that or this is wrong. So now we can find a lot of stuff that divides us. Divorce rate in the United States is 60%. It would probably be higher, but a lot of people are afraid of marriage because families disintegrate. The fatherless rate in the United States is nearly 80%. That's scary. So here's what I'm saying. This is what makes this so important. We allow too many things to divide us that really don't have to be. Okay? So now, it's not what makes us different, but it's what makes us the same. Look at this in Matthew chapter 12. Let me just kind of give you a concept, and then we'll just keep on moving here, okay, right? So Matthew chapter 12, verse 25, Jesus said this, that every city or household divided against itself can't stand. When we allow the issues to divide us, we're actually destroying our own home, right? And so that's why marriages crash and families fall apart. So when the differences divide us instead of complement us, it really kind of gets us in trouble. Now, you've heard the saying that people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, right? Well, in 2 Corinthians chapter 4 and verse 7, it says that he has this treasure in these jars of clay, that the excellence of the power may be of God and not of us. So we're living in this fragile jars of clay life. How many of you guys think you're fragile? Yeah, but you are. Anybody ever get your feelings hurt? Anybody ever hear a lie told about you? Okay. You ever hear gossip and you were the subject? You ever have anybody do something that was just wrong? You ever have people that you care deeply about do something dumb? You're like, really? Jars of clay. Jars of clay. Our hearts are fragile. Our relationships are fragile. Our lives are fragile. And what happens is when we feel like we've been fractured or hurt or tore up, we get defensive. We get defensive. We defend ourselves. And I'm first one to admit I'm there. People in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. And people that live as jars of clay shouldn't either. So here's what I'm saying. Matthew chapter 12, verse 25. A house divided against itself can't stand. So what do you do? What do you do with those offenses? What do you do with those problems? You have to make a decision. What in my life is more important than the future of my relationships? That's a decision you make, and there's nobody else that can make that decision but you, okay? Now, and here's what Jesus said to kind of help us kind of work through this. When they asked him what he thought, and when he finally spoke up, here's what he said. He said, okay, the first one of you that has no sin in your life, the first one of you that is perfect, you get to throw the first rock. So here's basically what he's saying. Before you cast judgment on somebody else. Now oftentimes what we do is we judge a very narrow judgment. Because we think, well, yeah, I'm not perfect, but. And so we only want to judge certain things. And Jesus said, no, here's a wide berth of things. And basically when he said that, he said, you that has no sin. In other words, when you go through the entire Old Testament, if you can get everything down perfect. You know, people talk about the 10 Commandments. You know what you don't realize? There's actually over 200 commandments. Wow, that's a lot. He says, if you can get like all 200 right and never have done those wrong, you get to throw the first rock. You ready, Rudy? I'm going to catch this, okay? And so here's what he's saying. Before you judge somebody else, start here. Start there. Before I judge Loretta, I got to judge Dave. I got to ask myself, you know, what's my part in this? And what does God want from me? So these fragile jars of clay get tore up. And so now what's interesting is several generations earlier in the book of 1 Samuel, there was another guy that picked up some stones. And his name was David. He was a young boy. And it said that he stopped at a brook when he was stepping out of the battlefield with a giant. And it said that he bent over in the brook and he picked up 5 smooth stones. And here's what I think. I think when he bent over that brook, he paused for just a moment. And he looked at a reflection that he saw in the water. Guess what he saw? He saw himself. And see, here's the deal. When we're picking up these stones and we're defending ourselves and we're fighting back and we're arguing about stuff that really doesn't even matter. Maybe it does matter, maybe it really doesn't. What about the image staring back? What do you see? What's important? He slipped those stones into his pocket. He recognized the man that was staring back at him. And I'm sure he thought to himself, how can I judge others without judging myself? Now, let me finish with this, and I want the worship team to help me out if they would. Here's what I want you to get, and this is probably the most important part of the day. There are battles that you're engaged in right now you can't afford to lose. Some of you are engaged in battles for your heart. Your entire future is at stake. You guys understand what I'm talking about? Some of you, there's some wounds that are deep inside and you've been wrestling with some thoughts and you haven't talked to anybody about this. Nobody. But it's just this personal wrestling match that you yourself are going through. And during those times you entertain thoughts of quitting, or I'm out of here, I'm going to respond, or whatever. We don't want to get defensive. These are battles you can't afford to lose. Some of you are in battles to keep your family together. Some of you are in battles just to kind of keep your sanity. Some of you are in battles personally. It's like, what am I going to do? These are battles you cannot afford to lose. And what the enemy of your soul is trying to do with you, he's trying to get you to throw the stones at one another. But here's the deal. If we're busy throwing all of our stones at each other, when the giant steps out of the battlefield, what do you have left to fight with? Does this make sense? Whenever I'm fighting battles with the people I care about or with the life that I care about, Loretta made me mad, so there it is. I heard somebody talking bad about me. That ever happened to you guys? Some lie or some gossip, somebody said something, or somebody's nice to your face and talks behind your back. The boss changes your hours. What a donkey. The neighbor across the street backed into your car. Really, dude? Are you kidding me? You and your kid get into an argument. Now something happens at your home where it just blows up. You guys know what I'm talking about? It just blows up. That's a giant issue. Talked to a family this week that they had to rush their child to Valley Children's, and they said, pray for me. When those giant battles come up, what do you have left to fight with? If you've used up basically all of your ammo on stuff that doesn't matter, you see what I'm saying? We only have so much strength to give. I guess all I'm saying today is make sure you're fighting the right battles, man. See, when David looked down into that stream, he saw the boy that couldn't win. When David got up and he looked at the giant, he believed in the God that couldn't lose. Which battles are you going to fight today? Could I get y'all to bow your heads and close your eyes for just a moment, please? You're sitting here this morning, and if I get anything through at all, it would be just simply to ask you, have you been fighting the wrong battles? I'm mad at that person. I'm frustrated with this issue, or this is going on. If you've been fighting the wrong battles and you're just so frustrated with the way that life is going right now, and you need things to turn around, you need things to change, all I want you to do this morning is just lift your hand up real quick and put it right back down. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? You try to respond, and it feels like just like that jar of clay. You feel like things are just getting worse or not getting better. Is that you? Just raise your hand real fast right back down. Thank you, guys. Thank you. My friend, save the stones for the giants. Save them for the battles that matter. Could y'all stand to your feet, please, this morning? Let's try something. You ready? Just turn to somebody, look at them. Just look at them. Don't give them a mean look. Just look. And here's what I want you to do. I want you to tell them, my battle's not with you. No, seriously, my battle's not with you. Okay, now I'm also pastor enough to realize some of you just lied. But I'm hoping eventually you get this, right? Because we wrestle not with flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers and rulers of the darkness of this world, spiritual wickedness in high places. I can't waste my stones beating up on the people that matter and the relationships that I need and the stuff that I can't afford to do without, because I've got giants in my life. Anybody else? Save the stones for the giants. So tell them again, my battle's not with you. Now, here's what I want you to tell them. My battle is with the one that's trying to divide us. Okay, got it? I know some of you, that was too many words. Let's try it again. You ready? My battle is not with you. My battle is with the one that's trying to divide us. Okay? So here's the deal. Prayer partners are up here to pray with you. Most importantly, I had to learn this the hard way. If I'm fighting the battles, then God won't fight for me. If I sit back and I let God fight the battles, I always win. If your hand's in, God's hand's out. Easy stuff, right? When Jesus said, he who is without sin, let him cast the first stone, nobody said a word, but you know what you could hear? Let the stones fall to the ground. Stop beating up the people that matter. Stop beating up yourself. And start believing that God has this battle under control. Okay? I'm going to stand up here in the front here for a little bit. And if you want to talk a little bit or pray, let's do that. All right? Join me in prayer.